Greetings, friends. Welcome back to the broadcast. I'm Sean, your host. Today we are continuing our study, our calendar. This will be our third week, following the Torah portions, the weekly Torah portions. And this week is called Vayera, which means he appeared, because the very first verse says, "And the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day." And so that he appeared is the Hebrew word Vayera. So that's the name of the portion for today. And really, there's so many. This is the unfortunate thing about doing these in a 30 to 40 minute window, is that there's so much that we can't stop to take a look at. First of all, we have these three interesting beings appearing before Abraham. We have judgment pronounced upon Sodom, and then the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. We have some really shameful and strange things that involve Lot during this whole period. We had the birth of Isaac, and then the commanded sacrifice of Isaac, which most of us know how that ends. And so there's just a whole lot that's taking place here, but you'll just have to hear most of it, and I'll try to do some commentary as I can. But that's what's on the agenda for this morning. So without further delay, because we got a lot to get through, it's Genesis chapter 18 through 22. Let's just go ahead and get started. Chapter 18. Verse 1. And the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre. He sat in the tent in the heat of the day, and he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and bowed himself toward the ground. And he said, My Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree, and I will fetch a morsel of bread, and comfort ye your hearts. After ye shall pass on, therefore, are ye come to your servant? And they said, So do as thou hast said. And Abraham hastened into the tent unto Sarah, and said, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the earth. And Abraham ran unto the herd, and fetched a calf tender and good, and gave it to a young man, and he hastened to dress it. And he took butter and milk, and the calf, which he had dressed, and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. And they said unto him, Where is Sarah, thy wife? And he said, Behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life, and lo, Sarah, thy wife, shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age, and it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of a woman. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? And the Lord said unto Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I of a surety bear a child which am old? Now, what's interesting here, I do want to stop real quick. You'll notice I'm reading from the King James Bible this morning, and not the Hallelujah Scriptures as I have been doing for the Torah portion. Right here it says, And the Lord said unto Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh? So you have these 3 men sitting here, but the Scriptures tell us that when the Lord tells Abraham, why did Sarah laugh, it actually isn't the Lord. And the King James kind of gives that away because it has in the text the capital Lord, which is the name of God. So right there it is Yehovah. So really, Yehovah said to Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I of surety bear a child which am old? And so I've always looked at these 3 individuals as 2 angels and one being God showing up in the form of man. And I think the scripture here very, very clearly tells us that that's what's going on here. As a matter of fact, in the next verse, it says, "Is anything too hard for Yehovah? At the appointed time, I will return unto thee according to the time of life," which is that word moed, which means appointed time. "And Sarah shall have a son." And you say, okay, well, why didn't you read from the Hallelujah Scriptures? Well, because the Hallelujah Scriptures, as I was reading through it yesterday to prepare for today, it really misleads in many cases in these passages that we're reading this morning as far as the name of God is concerned. For example, the very first time you see the word Lord, the very first verse, "And the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre." That's the word Adonai. Again, "And he said, My Lord, if I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away." Again, the word Adonai, but both times. And this is what a lot of the sacred name Bibles do. And it's unfortunate, but it's basically what they all do, because they're not really translations, unfortunately. It's not like they're looking at the manuscripts and then making a translation. They're just changing words, to do the sacred names and things of that nature. And when they do those search and replace, for whenever they see the word Lord, sometimes they're replacing Adonai also. So in the Holy Scriptures and all other sacred name Bible types, even the word Adonai is changed to Yehovah, which is misleading because it's not what's being said here. But then we have, in this case, where it is Yehovah, where all the English translations do say Lord, but at least in the case of the King James, and I believe even many others, they capitalize it so you know that it's the name of God. And so I didn't want to spend too much time on that. Let's continue. "And Yehovah said to Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I of surety bear a child which am old? Is anything too hard for Yehovah? At the time appointed, I will return unto thee according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Then Sarah denied, saying, I laughed not, for she was afraid. And he said, Nay, but thou didst laugh. And the men rose up from thence and looked towards Sodom. And Abraham went with them to bring on the way. And Yehovah said, Shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do? Seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of Yehovah to do justice and judgment, that Yehovah may bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken of him. And Yehovah said, Because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now, and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come unto me, and if not, I will know. And the men turned their faces from thence and went towards Sodom, but Abraham stood yet before Yehovah. Verse 23. And Abraham drew near and said, Wilt thou also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Peradventure there be 50 righteous within the city. Wilt thou also destroy and not spare the place for the 50 righteous that are therein? That be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, and that the righteous should be as wicked as the wicked. That be far from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? And I just love that. Abraham stands before Yehovah, the scriptures say, and says, Whoa, whoa, whoa. What about the righteous that might be in that city? Are you going to treat them the same way that you would treat the wicked? Are you going to destroy them the way you would destroy the wicked? Would not the creator of all things do what is right? I love Abraham's sense of righteousness. And not only that, his sense of, he knows that God should be even more so righteous. And the Lord said, If I find in Sodom 50 righteous within this city, then I will spare all the place for their sakes. And Abraham, of course, God knows, right? He knows there's no righteous in there, except for Lot. And of course, that's probably what Abraham's, at the end of the day, really is concerned about. He's concerned about his family members there, Lot, and all the children associated with Lot. And Abraham answered and said, Behold, now I have taken upon to speak unto Jehovah, which I am dust and ashes. Peradventure, there shall lack 5 of the 50 righteous. Wilt thou destroy all the city for the lack of 5? And he said, If I find there 45, I will not destroy it. And he spake unto him yet again, and he said, Peradventure, there shall be 40 found there. And he said, I will not do it for this 40's sake. And he said unto him, Oh, not let the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Peradventure, there shall 30 be found there. And he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, Behold, now I have taken upon to speak unto the Lord. Peradventure, there shall be 20 found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for the 20's sake. And he said, Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak yet but this once. Peradventure, 10 shall be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 10's sake. And the Lord went away as soon as he had left communing with Abraham, and Abraham returned unto his place. Chapter 19. And there came 2 angels to Sodom at even. And Lot sat in the gate of Sodom, and Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face towards the ground. And he said, Behold, now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and ye shall rise up early, and go on your ways. And they said, Nay, but we shall abide in the street all night. And he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned unto him, and entered into the house, and made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. All right, a couple quick things. Sometimes people try to decide what time of year it is because it's unleavened bread that Lot is making for them, which is it's possible that it was during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, but then those feasts haven't really been given or anything yet. But I've heard that theory. That's not what I'm focusing on. What I'm looking at is the men. Why would they say to Lot, I'm just going to, when he's, okay, so Lot clearly sees that there's something special about these people, right? They're clearly not normal human beings. And he's like, hey, come into my house. And they're like, no, we're going to stay out in the street all night in the city gate. And he pressed upon them greatly, it says. In other words, he's basically pleading with them, no, come back to my house. Now, why? You see, Lot knew what took place in the city. Specifically what took place to people traveling through. And I don't have time to go into it today, but I've done several studies from the book of Jubilees, from the book of Jasher. You can find them on the YouTube channel or on the website by searching for Sodom. And it's because Lot knew the things that they did to strangers in the street. And I think the readers originally would have read this and kind of understood that. Of course, we don't really need to have that back information because in the next following verses, we're going to see exactly what happens when the people of Sodom discover that there's strangers who have come into their city. Verse 4. But before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, all the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot and said unto him, Where are the men which came in to thee this night? Bring them out to us that we may know them. That word know there is the word for intimacy. I think we all get the picture what they intend to do. Verse 6, And Lot went out at the door unto them, and he shut the door after him. And he said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold, now I have 2 daughters which have not known a man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and you do to them as is good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. Now here is my biggest, out of all the just shady things that Lot does, this one is the one that troubles me the most. And I'm sure many of you who are listening and reading troubles you also. And we can say, hey, well, a different culture, different time, different view. No, I'm sorry. This is disturbing. That Lot, and look, I realize he seems to be aware that he has two messengers of Jehovah under his roof. I get that. But to offer his two virgin daughters to be thrown out, to be gang raped, and who knows what else, I find just a little troubling that Lot would be willing to do this. And I'm not only that, we have to remember that Lot is living in Sodom. He chose to go there. He chose to live amongst these types of people. And so it's hard to conceive that Lot would be considered a righteous man. And we're going to see something else even more shameful that happens. However, when I say it's hard to think of Lot as a righteous man, I have to immediately retract that statement, because the Bible tells us, I believe it's Peter who tells us that Lot was righteous, and that his righteous soul was vexed day to day as he lived amongst the people of Sodom. And so then we have to think, well, maybe he's not choosing to live there after all. Maybe he chose to live there initially, but you know how it is. It's just like where we all live right now. It's not so easy to get up and leave, is it? It's not so simple to come out from amongst them, which is what Lot is going to be required to do. Okay, I've got to hurry up if I'm going to get through all this. Verse 9. And they said, stand back. And they said again, this one fellow came in to sojourn, he will needs be a judge. Now we will deal worse with thee than with them. And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. But the men put forth their hand, and pulled Lot into the house to them, and shut the door. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. And the men said unto Lot, hast thou here any besides son-in-law, and thy sons, and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place? For we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxen great before the face of Jehovah, and Jehovah hath sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out, and he spake unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters, and he said, up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-law. I have to stop real quick again. I feel like this is the attitude of people when you say, hey, things are getting strange. I think the return of Messiah really is at the door. I think the end of all things might be upon us. This is the same look and response that we'll get. Lot goes to his sons-in-laws, who are married to a couple of his daughters, and pleads with them, hey, we have to leave. This place is going to be destroyed. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his son. In other words, they thought he was just joking. Like, how could this guy be serious? Verse 15. And when morning arose, then the angels hastened Lot, saying, arise, take thy wife and thy 2 daughters, which are here, lest they be consumed in the iniquity of the city. And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his 2 daughters, and the Lord being merciful unto him. And they brought him forth, and set him without the city. And it came to pass, when they brought them forth abroad, that he said, escape for thy life. Look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. And Lot said unto them, oh, no, not so, my lord. Behold, thy servant hath found grace in thy sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy, which thou hast showed unto me in saving my life. And I cannot escape to the mountain, lest some evil take me, and I die. Behold now, this city is near to flee unto, and it is a little one. O let me escape thither. Is it not a little one? And my soul shall live. And they said unto him, see, I have accepted thee concerning this thing also, that I will not overthrow this city, for which thou hast spoken. Haste thee, escape thither, for I cannot do anything until thou comest thither. Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun was risen upon the earth when Lot entered into Zoar. Then Jehovah rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And And he overthrew those cities, and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the city, and that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before the Lord. And he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the plain, and behold, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham, and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot dwelt. Okay, so in this verse right here, it makes it clear the reason why Lot was rescued from Sodom was for the sake of Abraham. It says it very clearly. Verse 29, and it came to pass, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham, and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot dwelt. Verse 30, and Lot went up out of Zoar, and dwelt in the mountain, and his 2 daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar, and dwelt in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. I find this part interesting too, because he is told by the 2 angels, flee into the mountains. But he says, no, I want to go over to the city that's over there. And so they permit him to go into the city. But then he doesn't even end up staying in the city. He ends up going to the mountains anyway. Interesting. Verse 31. And the firstborn said unto the younger, our father is old, and there is not a man on earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve the seed of our father. Now, one thing that we do need to err on the side of grace and mercy when we're reading this part is that it's clear, according to the scriptures, that the 2 daughters think there's no men left. They just seen what to them was known to be the whole world, all they knew of the world, up in smoke. Fire and brimstone rained down upon it. And in this culture, it actually was, terrible for a woman to be barren or to not to produce children. Even so, it does make this a very shameful act. Verse 33. And they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father. And he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. And it came to pass on the morrow, that the firstborn said to the younger, behold, I lay yesternight with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go thou in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night also, and the younger arose and lay with him. And he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father. And the firstborn bare a son, and he called his name Moab. The same is the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger, she also bare a son, and called his name Ben-Ami. The same is the father of the children of Ammon unto this day. Chapter 20. And Abraham journeyed from thence toward the south country, and dwelled between Kadesh and Shur, and sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said of Sarah his wife, she is my sister. And Abimelech the king of Gerar sent and took Sarah. Here's what I find interesting. Sarah's too old to bear children naturally without the, miracle of God. Yet, her beauty is so incredible that no matter where they go, even at this stage in their life, Abraham still has to tell the kings that she's his sister, for fear that they might kill him to have her. Sarah must have been the most beautiful woman to ever exist. Matter of fact, I read from the testaments of the patriarchs that were found with the Dead Sea Scrolls about one of these situations where Abraham and Sarah go into Egypt, and Sarah is taken from him, and that whole exchange, and they talk about her beauty and all that. You can find that in the archives. Let's continue. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night, and said unto him, behold, thou art but a dead man, for the woman which thou hast taken, for she is a man's wife. But Abimelech had not come near her, and he said, Lord, wilt thou slay also a righteous nation? Said he not unto me, She is my sister? And she, even with herself, said, He is my brother? In the integrity of my heart and innocency of my hands I have done this. And God said unto him in a dream, Yea, I know that thou did this in the integrity of thy heart, for I also withheld thee from sinning against me. Therefore suffered thee not to touch her. Now therefore restore the man his wife, for he is a prophet, and he shall pray for thee, and thou shalt live. And if thou restore her not, know thou that thou shalt surely die, thou and all that are thine. Therefore Abimelech rose early in the morning, and he called all of his servants, and he told all these things, and their ears and the men were sore afraid. And Abimelech called Abraham, and he said unto him, What hast thou done unto us? And what have I offered thee, that thou hast brought on me and my kingdom a great sin? Thou hast not done the deeds unto me that ought not to be done. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, What sawest thou that thou hast done this thing? And Abraham said, Because I thought surely, for the fear of God is not in this place, and they will slay me for my wife's sake. And yet indeed she is my sister, she is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. And it came to pass, when God caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said unto her, This is thy kindness which thou shalt show unto me at every place whither we shall come. Say of me, He is my brother. And Abimelech took sheep and oxen and men servants and women servants, and gave them unto Abraham, and restored him Sarah his wife. And Abimelech said, Behold, my land is before thee, dwell where it pleaseth thee. And said unto Sarah, he said, Behold, I have given thy brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Behold, he is to thee a covering of the eyes, unto all that are with thee, and with all other. Thus she was reproved. So Abraham prayed unto God, and God healed Abimelech, and his wife, and his maidservants, and they bare children. For the Lord had fast closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech, because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Chapter 21. And the Lord visited Sarah, and he had said, as he has said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called his name the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bore to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as God had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. And Sarah said, God hath made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me. And she said, Who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should have been given children suck? For I have borne him a son in his old age. And the children grew, and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, which she had borne unto Abraham, mocking. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, Cast out the bondwoman and her son. For the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac. And this thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight because of his son. And God said unto Abraham, Let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad, and because of thy bondwoman. And all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto her voice, for Isaac shall thy seed be called. And also the son of the bondwoman will I make a nation, because he is thy seed. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and took bread, and a bottle of water, and he gave it unto Hagar, putting it on her shoulder, and the child, and sent her away. And she departed, and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. And the water was spent in the bottle, and she cast the child under one of her shrubs. And she went, and she sat her down over against him in a good way off, as it were a bow shot. For she said, Let me not see the death of the child. And she sat over against him, and lifted her voice, and wept. And God heard the voice of the lad, and the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven, and said unto her, What aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him in thy hand, for I will make him a great nation. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and she filled the bottle with water and gave the lad drink. And God was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. And it came to pass in that time that Abimelech and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, spake unto Abraham, saying, God is with thee, in all that thou doest. Now therefore swear unto me here by God that thou wilt not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor with any of my son's sons, but according to the kindness that I have done unto thee, thou shalt do unto me, and to the land wherein thou hast sojourned. And Abraham said, I will swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of the well of water, which Abimelech's servants had violently taken away. And Abimelech had said, I wot not who hath done this thing, neither didst thou tell me, neither yet heard I of it, but today. And Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and both of them made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, What mean these 7 ewe lambs which thou hast set by themselves? He said, For these 7 ewe lambs shalt thou take of my hand, that thou may be a witness unto me that I have digged this well. Wherefore he called that place Beersheba, because where they swore both of them, thus made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech rose up, and Phicol and the chief captain of his host, and they returned unto the land of the Philistines. And Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba, and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned in the Philistines' land many days. Chapter 22. And it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham, and said unto him, Abraham. And he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thy only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon the mountain which I will tell thee of. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and saddled his ass, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went unto the place of which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes, and he saw the place afar off. And Abraham said to his young men, Abide ye here with the ass. I and the lad will go yonder and worship, and come again unto you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering, and laid it upon Isaac his son. And he took the fire in his hand, and a knife, and they went both of them together. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and he said, My father. He said, Here I am, my son. He said, Behold, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham said, Son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. For they went both of them together. Now, I personally think that statement there is fairly loaded, that God would provide himself a lamb. You see, this is very clearly a picture of what God would inevitably do, that God would take his only begotten Son, whom he loveth, and he would sacrifice him for the sins of the world. And of course, Christ Messiah willingly went to the cross. And there's other texts that talk about this story of Isaac. And it pictures Isaac not as some little boy as we think of him when we read this story, but as a man. When you read it in some of the other ancient texts, like Jasher, Jubilees, some of the patriarch text, it's like Isaac knew what was getting ready to happen, and he not only was Abraham willing to obey God in this situation, but so was Isaac. And God, as we're going to read, God will inevitably provide his own sacrifice, as he would do. This is a foreshadow of what Messiah would do for us. Verse 9. And they came to the place which God had told him of. And Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in the order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. He said, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place Jehovah-Jireh. As it is said to this day, in the mount of Jehovah it shall be seen. And the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham out of heaven the second time, and said, By myself I have sworn, saith the Lord, for because thou hast done this thing, and thou hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore. And thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. And in thy seed shall all nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice. And of course, as we know, all the nations of the world have been blessed because of the seed of Abraham, the Lord Jesus Christ. I added that part. Verse 19. So Abraham returned unto his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt in Beersheba. And it came to pass after these things that it was told Abraham, saying, Behold, Milcah, she hath also borne children unto thy brother Nahor, Huz his firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Chesed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Jidlaph, and Bethuel. And Bethuel begot Rebekah. These 8 Milcah did bear to Nahor, Abraham's brother. And his concubine, whose name was Rumah, she bare also Teba, and Gaham, and Thahash, and Makkah. And that is the end of our Torah portion this morning. Now, I'm actually recording this on a Friday morning, but you won't receive it till a Saturday morning because I am out of time, as it took all the time that I had this morning to get through all those chapters. And so if I felt a little rushed towards the end, I apologize. I was trying to get it done. You know, the thing about the Torah portion is the key is that it was read in the synagogue every Sabbath day. And so you don't really need all of my commentary and all of my thoughts. I try to offer them when I can, but really all you need to do is hear the word. If I were just to read it and never say another word, that would be enough to speak to your hearts. Maybe even better than hearing me talk. I pray that you've been blessed, and I prayed in the powerful name of Yeshua, in the powerful name of Jesus. If you like what's going on here, you can support it. ScriptureandProphecy.com. Become a Patreon subscriber. Not only do you support this podcast, but you get access to 5 Hebrew videos, training videos. You can support through PayPal and through the post office box. And I appreciate all your prayers, all your support, all that you do to help me make this possible. That's all I have for you this morning. Peace and grace be with all of you. And until the next time, God bless.